I am Dr. Paul Drouin, professor of integrative medicine and founder of Quantum University. And today we have the privilege and the excitement to have with us Dr. Timothy Buie. Dr. Timothy Buie is a pediatrician, gastroenterologist, and also assistant professor at Harvard Medical School. And he will be speaking today about autism and the microbiome. We have to understand that there's many angles to approach the pro-consciousness medicine, and one of them is certainly this connection brain-gut. You probably agree with this. We know that 100 millions of neurons in the gut and as much neurotransmitter that you can find in the brains and 95% of serotonin. So I'm sure the microbiome or the bacteria can speak to the brain. Will you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think that it's an interesting process what dietary intake has to affect all of the neurotransmitters, and how we're communicating may be nerve-based, it may be circulation-based, how we change that by diet and things that we can do, I think is an extremely hot topic right now.
And I was very surprised and shocked, impressed to hear your conference and see now how the world of gastroenterologists, interface with the nutritionists and people who were paying attention to the bowel flora. And we have so many approaches in alternative medicine or integrative medicine where we emphasize on the healthy bowel. And years ago, I published an article more than 20 years ago about probiotics and yeast syndrome. I was only suggesting that probiotic will be something beneficial after a regime of antibiotics, and the whole community, the medical community, was just shocked by that statement. So I think we have done a lot of research since then that you substantiate now by your presentation.
Likewise, about 20 years ago, we published a paper looking at the use of Lactobacillus GG as a treatment for C. difficile in pediatric colitis. And the idea that one would use a probiotic instead of using an antibiotic to try to treat one of these conditions was really, I think, novel at the time. And yet now the use of these products, I think, will become part of mainstream medicine without question, as a way to try to limit the pathology of things like antibiotics or other treatments at times.
And what you will think about now, naturopath or nutritionists that are more like in favor of therapies like Colonics, by example?
I think Colonics, anything that one does to change that makeup may have an impact on the microbiome, but it certainly impacts the well-being of an individual. We tend to do, as GI people, cleanouts from above with large quantities of laxatives in some way. But in the same way, if you're clearing that bulk of stool, you're diminishing distension on the bowel, you're getting rid of gas, you're making all of these changes, that allows for a change in the microbiome to occur. And certainly, as we've talked about, the kids that we bring for colonoscopy on the day that they've had a clean out where their bowel has really been emptied may be the clearest day that our children with autism have. They don't have food on board, they have cleared out their bowels, they're not distended, they may be much more comfortable and happy and even more communicative on those days. So it clearly makes a difference. The problem is, how does one sustain that effect? Can you sustain it with some degree of regularity? How do we keep that success going on a day-to-day basis?
So gut environment has an effect on behavior and awareness and consciousness. Will you support that with your?
Absolutely. I think this is something that we'll try to talk about, that the changes that we can bring about by using diet products, yogurt starters, etc., will really potentially change the neurotransmission at the brain level and alter pain sensitivity, alter emotional sensitivity in individuals. This is stuff that we could be doing in the day-to-day that might change our day-to-day existence.
And that has been your research for the last 10 years or 20 years?
On general autism care primarily. And certainly this is work that we have done. A lot of the work that we do is trying to look at the nutrition of those kids and figure out if there are changes that we can be making, or specifically looking to see that these are kids who are often very rigid and restricted in their food intake, whether they're meeting their nutrient needs, et cetera. That's a tough issue for some of those kids who are very, very particular about the types of foods that they'll eat, et cetera. They really are doing things that we think are disrupting their overall environment. And so a lot of what we do is to try to bring back foods, try to get them back to a more healthy lifestyle, get rid of the junk, get rid of the additives and the flavorings and the ingredients that might be harmful. I think that's a big deal for a lot of these kids.
And the same discovery apply to normal people, I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely.
And you're also founder and developer of the Autism Treatment Network. Would you like to comment more about that?
Yep. The Autism Treatment Network is an organization within the Autism Speaks organization, and it's a group of hospitals that have put together a consortium of doctors that provide for autism care. So these centers have a neurologist and a psychopharmacology doctor and a gastroenterologist, a sleep specialist, among other providers that create a consortium within each of those hospitals to provide broad-based multidisciplinary care for autism. And that was our idea, came from what our center was like at the Mass General, and this really created similar models at these other institutions so that kids could go to these treatment networks and see somebody who could help them with sleep, could help them with metabolism and genetics workups, et cetera, all at one center. It's what I think is a nice model for medical care for kids who have multidisciplinary type problems. Autism is certainly that. It comes out of the model of Down syndrome or other kind of syndromes that we know have multiple specialty needs within a diagnosis.
So we have many of our listeners, students that are highly interested in the subject of autism, and I'm sure they will be absolutely excited and delighted to see, how much new information and research, you have about the microbiome and how we can help, these children, and also, I believe the same research can apply with to normal people. So thank you very much to be with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.